Hello everyone, this is the Archfiend. I'm in my deep in thought pose, by the way, because we're going to do some deep critical thinking here. We're not here to talk about, YouTube horrors or, point and laugh at idiot Shane Dawson fanboys or anything like that. We're going to be doing a quote-unquote serious Archfiend video. And partly this stems from you guys liking my S.978 bill video from last week where I, talked about the workings of the government and how they're trying to enact that law and copyrights and all the other shit. Watch the video if you haven't already. Anyway, you guys seem to get a kick out of that and, enjoy my quote-unquote expertise of the American justice system. So we're going to do another video about that. I hope this video, isn't so boring that you're strangling yourselves to death by the time this video ends out of sheer boredom. But it's something that I've always wanted to talk about. I feel now's as good a time as any, because this is going to be talking about the way the justice system works and the way the justice system prosecutes pregnant mothers for the acts of their negligence that either leads to the death or the harm of their child while it's still in the womb. Now, a lot of this has to stem from a conversation that I had with a coworker last week, and I had thought about this topic much before that as well, but he was talking to me about a local court case here where a mother did some illegal drugs and it led to the death of her unborn child, and the prosecution wants to throw the proverbial book at her, give her a murder sentence, life in prison, the whole shebang. And my coworker said that, isn't it kind of, ridiculous that the American justice system would prosecute someone like her, yet someone who gets an abortion never gets prosecuted for second-degree murder, and the doctors that perform the abortions don't get charged with first-degree murder ever. I was like, yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. I think it's two somewhat different things, and one thing that I try to do is never engage in a discussion about abortion. I've been asked to make a video about abortion at least 1,000 times here on this channel. I always stay away from it for one simple reason. It never gets anything done. It's worthless. It's a pointless cause. Not that it's a pointless cause to be for or against abortion, but it's pointless to try and talk to someone who, if you're speaking from the stance of you're for abortion, speaking to people that are against abortion, or vice versa. You can talk to each other's side till you're blue in the face. Neither side will change their mind. Therefore, it's pointless. However, I will have to indirectly reference it in this video, but I'm not going to give you my exact stance to it because really I don't care to say, and it's personally my business as to what I think about abortion. But what I have done over the past few days is I researched some law journals and I found some specific law articles that deal with the punishment of mothers based on the quote-unquote negligent abuse of their unborn child. And I found a lot of this stems from court cases that came at the turn of the century, one of which I want to reference right off the bat is a court case that came out of South Carolina in May of 2001. And South Carolina was one of the first states, I do believe it was the first state, someone may correct me on that, that enacted laws that were set forth to help protect the rights of an unborn child. A lot of the modern day laws that are on the books, which is now in 38 states in the United States, a lot of these laws that are set forth stem from these early court cases like this one in South Carolina. Let me just go over a brief synopsis of what happened here. A pregnant drug addict who killed her unborn child by smoking crack cocaine has just been jailed for 12 years, the first such murder sentence in America. It took a jury in South Carolina only 15 minutes to convict Regina McKnight of homicide by child abuse. She was 8.5 months pregnant when she delivered a stillborn baby 2 years ago. Obviously, this article's a little dated. It was a bit more than 2 years ago. The point being that this was a very severe sentence that was handed out, and it was the first time a jail sentence of this severity was issued over someone killing, quote-unquote killing, depending on how you want to look at this, of their unborn child. Since this time, a number of other people have been prosecuted, of which I want to go over specific court cases here with you. Again, this may get long and drawn out. This is just something that I just wanted to talk about, and I'm curious to see what people out there that I can speak to about this think about this issue. You can tell me I'm dead off the money on this, but I just want to talk about this. Now, I'm going to go over a few specific court cases here and give you my 2 cents after each specific one. So again, this may get long and drawn out, but deal with it. Rennie Gibbs is accused of murder, but the crime she is alleged to have committed does not sound like any ordinary killing. Yet she faces life in prison in Mississippi over the death of her unborn child. Gibbs became pregnant at the age of 15, but lost the baby in December 2006 in a stillbirth when she was 36 weeks into her pregnancy. When the prosecutors discovered that she had a cocaine habit, though there was no evidence that the drug abuse had anything to do with the baby's death, they charged her with the, quote, depraved heart murder, end quote, of her child, which carries a mandatory life sentence. Now, the reason why I started off with this specific court case to talk about is this is an example of how that court case in South Carolina stemmed into a court case like this in a separate state, and they're hitting this person with an equally as harsh charge for having a drug problem or a drug addiction problem during the term of her pregnancy. Now, a lot of people would be like, all right, well, hey, she did cocaine when she was pregnant and killed the child. Yeah, of course, she deserves murder, right? I mean, she deserves a sentence that's, like of a murderer's sentence. Well, I want to read you this next specific court case because this kind of puts things into perspective. This is one I really want to delve into. Forgive me, I do not know how to pronounce this name. It's Beibeishuai. Bebe Shuai? We'll go with that. Bebe Shuai, age 34, has spent the last 3 months in a prison cell in Indianapolis charged with murdering her baby. On the 23rd of December, she tried to commit suicide by taking rat poison after her boyfriend abandoned her. Shuai was rushed to the hospital but survived. But she was 33 weeks pregnant, and her baby, to whom she gave birth a week after the suicide attempt and whom she called Angel, died after 4 days. In March, Shuai was charged with murder and attempted feticide, and she has been in custody since without the offer of bail. So, here we have an instance of a girl. This time it's not a 15-year-old, it's a 34-year-old woman. She's basically been in prison. She tried to commit suicide. She committed it 2 days before Christmas. Not that it has too much of a bearing on this, but it shows you how depressed she was around the proverbial happiest time of the year. And her boyfriend abandoned her. And now she has to live with the fact that she lived through this and quote-unquote murdered her child because of this. So now she's been sitting in jail for this time and has to have God knows how much jail time inflicted on top of this. Alright, let me just delve into, because I'm going to come back to this case in a second here when I make a point later. In Alabama, at least 40 cases have been brought under the state's, quote, chemical endangerment, end quote, law. Introduced in 2006, the statute was designed to protect children whose parents were cooking methamphetamines in the home and thus putting their children at risk from inhaling the fumes. Amanda Kimbrough is one of the women who has been ensnared as a result of this law being applied in a wholly different way. During her pregnancy, her fetus was diagnosed with possible Down syndrome, and the doctor suggested she consider termination, which Kimbrough declined as she is not in favor of abortion. The baby was delivered by a cesarean section prematurely in April 2008 and died 19 minutes after the birth. 6 months later, Kimbrough was arrested at home and charged with, quote, chemical endangerment of her child on the grounds that she had taken drugs during the pregnancy, a claim in which she has denied. She said, "That shocked me. It really did. I had lost my child. That was enough." So, we have a situation here where laws came forth on the books, and this person is being prosecuted for something that she could have just outright killed the baby and not have been prosecuted. The doctors recommended that she get an abortion because through amniocentesis, which is the examination of amniotic fluid, which you can see basically a DNA readout, for lack of a better term, of the child, which can tell you if the baby could have heart defect, could have a misformed brain or anything like that. They found out that the baby was going to have Down syndrome. She was advised to have an abortion. If she had the abortion, she would have never seen an ounce of time in jail. But because she carried this baby to term, and the baby died after it was born, she now has to suffer the consequences of the law because she wanted to take a chance and give that child a life. But if she chose to kill the child, she wouldn't have seen an ounce, a second of time in jail. Do you people see how these laws are morphing into something that just starts to create absurdity? I don't know. I found this specific court case just astonishing, just absolutely astonishing. Because she could have chose to have the abortion. And that's kind of the weird thing about it. When you have an abortion in this country, it's perfectly legal, well, granted on what state you're in and granted on what term or trimester you are as far as your pregnancy goes. And it's a willingly killing of the child. But she didn't believe in it. Even though she knew the kid was going to have Down syndrome, even though she apparently had drugs in her system, which she's denying, she's being punished for it. Yet she would never be punished if she killed the child. I just find that amazing. Now, I have one last court case I want to go into here, and I'm going to try and tie all these things together here after I read this one. This is the one that I just absolutely just couldn't believe. Alright. A Hawkins County mother was sentenced to 1 year in prison Monday in Hawkins County Circuit Court for taking Oxycontin and Valium during her pregnancy last year. On September 27, 2009, Jessica Lynn Whitaker, and for some reason the article lists her entire mailing address. I guess they want, the abortion activists or whatever to write her hate mail or something. Anyways, blah, 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 gives her address, gave birth to a boy. During the examination of the infant, it was discovered that Oxycontin and Valium were in his system. The hospital initially contacted the Tennessee Department of Children's Services about the drugs in the baby's system. DCS then brought in a Rogersville Attorney General's office into the investigation. Teddy Collinsworth, an investigator with the Attorney General's office, subsequently interviewed Whitaker, who admitted to using Oxycontin and Valium during her pregnancy. Do you people see why I think this specific case is so absurd? Now, the other ones I can understand. Alright, the one woman had cocaine in her system. Another one was smoking crack. Those are illegal substances at any time of the year, taken by any person, prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. This lady was on Oxycontin and Valium, 2 legal prescription drugs. Now, she obviously probably wasn't taking them under a doctor's advice, because no doctor in the right mind would say, oh yeah, go ahead and take Oxycontin and Valium while you're pregnant, it's perfectly healthy for you. But still doesn't change the fact that these were legal drugs, and she's being prosecuted for it. Now, she gave birth to that boy. Do you guys know what happened to the boy? It's no longer in the mother's custody. In fact, the mother gave it over to the father's cousins to basically grow up with. There was no immediate side effects for it, yet this mother was punished by the law for being negligent to her child for taking legal drugs. Like I said, she might have been taking him under illegal circumstances or just, whatever. And it says, yeah, she even pled guilty. During her guilty plea Monday, Circuit Court Judge John Duggar described the narcotics as, quote, a deadly weapon, end quote. Whitaker told the court that her baby is now healthy and living with the father's cousins. The only ill effect reported in court documents was that the child has been placed on a medication for seizures. Now, I know a lot of people are like, oh, there we go, the baby's having seizures all the time or whatever, but the baby's several years old and is on a seizure medication. I know of a number of people that are on a seizure medication where it's really not that big of a deal. The child is out of the mother's custody. It appears to be happy and healthy according to the court documents, yet this person is getting punished by having to serve a year in jail for negligent actions that, for all intents and purposes, really didn't lead to anything. Now, I know if some people see this article, they're going to point out, well, she was on probation at the time for a misdemeanor theft charge, and the courts ended up bringing that up into play. And I have to say to that is, how can that be brought into play? Yes, she was on probation, but what the hell does that have to do with taking a legal drug? She was on probation for theft. I could understand if she was stealing a car after this, after being on probation for theft, for the judge to be like, yeah, we got to hit you with a harsher sentence now. You obviously aren't getting the drift that taking stuff is bad. But Jesus Christ, the fact that they referenced that, and the fact that that was implicated in the judge rendering his sentence, I don't know. I just don't get it. And kind of going back to that one case where Amanda Kimbrough decided to, not have that abortion. It just reeks of absurdity, and I don't know if people see the law as absurd as I do, because these are all choices the mothers decided to make. They decided to keep carrying their child, besides the fact that they knew they were doing things that could potentially harm it. Because the whole thing of where I see this division of negligence comes in when an obese, an extremely, excessively obese mother gets pregnant and decides to carry that child. Now, I know right off the bat, people are going to say, what the hell? There's no legalities in an obese mother carrying a child. All right, maybe there isn't. There's nothing illegal about being excessively overweight. But you know what there is? There's a number of reports in a lot of medical journals that show clinical obesity. And I'm talking about people that can be 300, 350 pounds plus, deciding to become pregnant. And all the doctors that say it is an extreme risk to carry the child in that condition. These women that get pregnant at that state, there's a number of deaths that are inflicted on the child simply because of the mother's physical weight. One of them stems from these pressure ruptures in the womb. Basically, it's from the womb expanding, from the child getting bigger, obviously, through the term of the pregnancy, and the sheer weight of the woman's stomach and just girth on top of it, creating such an intense pressure on the womb that it ruptures in what can be up to 4 months before the child's pregnancy comes to term, or the mother's pregnancy comes to term, excuse me. Some of these children are birthed prematurely and grow up to be happy and healthy, some of which are dead on arrival. Now, I searched through these medical journals, and then I searched through these law journals. I tried to find one single instance where a mother who was clinically obese and that obesity led to the death of her child, I tried to find one single instance where that negligence of the mother was prosecuted by the law. And I have to ask you people that proverbial question that I've said before. Why does obesity get a pass? Obesity gets a free pass just to get no criticism here. But if that mother's doing drugs, it's like, oh, that mother is a cocaine addict and she's doing drugs. Doesn't she know that's a high-risk pregnancy? If a 300-plus pound woman gets pregnant, how many people do you hear honestly criticize that? Do you hear anyone criticize that? No, because it's taboo. Because being overweight is something that people, quote-unquote, can't control. People always talk about, the drug abuse mother being, just irresponsible for getting pregnant in her condition. Yet you never hear the clinically obese mother being called, oh, that's irresponsible for getting pregnant in your condition. Even though both circumstances have been proven to lead to absolute deaths in the child. Yet the courts will never see it that way. The courts are only going to prosecute the people doing the illicit drugs, or in some cases doing drugs that are legal. Taking Valium and Oxycontin, you're going to jail. This mother that decided not to have the abortion is going to jail because she wanted to give her child the chance to live. Now, let me ask you this. Why don't they, when someone has an abortion, why don't they ever test the fetus to see if there is any remnants of any drug use from the mother in the fetus itself? Why is there not a secondary charge, like how there's a first-degree murder and a second-degree murder? There should be, they talk about this feticide charge. If you give birth to a child and it dies because you took in illicit drugs, then I think there should be a secondary charge if you chose to have an abortion out of fear of imprisonment because you had a drug addiction that you could not kick. Because let's put things into perspective. If you keep the child and you have birth and it dies after that child is born and it's found out that you had drugs in your system, you're going to jail. But if you're pregnant and then all of a sudden you see, oh boy, these women are going to jail and I have drugs in my system, I don't want to take that chance. I want to have an abortion just to prevent a possible jail sentence from being inflicted on me. How can that not be seen as second-degree feticide if you're going to punish the mother that carries the child to term and gives birth to a child that dies? I just don't understand how the court system works in situations like this, and how when someone is irresponsible with their physical weight and has a child in a condition that is not conducive to having a healthy child, it may lead to a happy, healthy child. There are drug addicts that have had children that have grown up to be happy and healthy. I just don't understand how the system can work one way against negligence and one way against another negligence. Send these people to jail, coddle these people and never criticize them. Just because they have an eating disorder. Just because they eat too much, they weigh too much. We can't make fun of them or anything like that. They're untouchable. Send these people to jail. This poor girl that had her boyfriend abandon her. She tried to kill herself. Now she's going to jail because she took rat poison trying to kill herself and her child died. Oh, she's going to be a real great person now to society. Jail life is really good for a person that just tried to kill themselves and now just killed their child. Unbelievable. I think I've ran on quite too long about this, and hopefully I got some of you guys thinking about this. Maybe this is a topic you guys have never thought about. Am I completely off my rocker for saying people that are clinically obese should be held to the same term of law as the person that is just completely negligent with their drug abuse? Is there a hypocrisy in the system? I don't know. What do you guys think? God, I hope this wasn't too long and boring for you guys. And I know I just went way up on my soapbox there. Have a great day, everyone.